This move immediately claims central space and opens lines for the queen and king's bishop, inviting a wide range of responses and leading to dynamic game development. This move directly challenges white's central pawn and opens lines for black's queen and bishop, leading to classical and well-tested opening continuations. This move, a developing move attacking black's central pawn, aims to gain an early initiative and control key squares in the center. This move defends the e5 pawn and develops a piece, preparing for common opening continuations like the Ruy Lopez or Italian game. This move, 3d4, is the central thrust of the Scotch game, aiming to immediately challenge black's pawn on e5 and open up the center for piece activity. This move initiates the Scotch game, a classical opening where white aims for rapid development and central control by challenging black's pawn on e5 immediately. This move, nxd4, is the most principled response to black's gambit, immediately challenging black's central pawn and developing a piece towards the center. This move, nf6, develops a piece, attacks white's central pawn on e4, and prepares to castle, adhering to fundamental opening principles. By exchanging the knight for the knight, white chooses to double black's c pawns, creating a pawn structure that can lead to long-term positional weaknesses for black to defend. This capture on c6 damages black's pawn structure, creating an isolated pawn on c6 and weakening the queenside, which white will aim to exploit by controlling the open b file and targeting the weak pawn. This pawn advance opens lines for white's pieces and challenges black's knight, aiming to gain space and disrupt black's pawn structure. This move develops the queen to a more active square, supporting the central pawn and preparing to contest the e-file, a common strategic goal in this particular variation of the Scotch game. This move supports the advanced e-pawn, preparing to castle queenside and potentially open the h-file for attack after black recaptures on e5. This move strategically repositions the knight to the center, challenging white's advanced pawn and preparing to recapture on c6 if white plays exf6, thereby improving black's pawn structure. This move challenges black's advanced pawn and prepares to develop the queenside pieces by clearing the c-file. This move develops the bishop to an active diagonal, challenging white's control of the c4 pawn and potentially opening up lines for counterplay against white's central pawn structure. This move forces the black bishop to move and defends the important e5 pawn while preparing to develop the other pieces. This knight retreat to b6 improves its position by heading towards the queenside, potentially challenging white's c-pawn and aiming for squares like c4 or a4. This move repositions the knight to a more flexible square, allowing for further development and potential counterplay against black's queenside pawn structure. By castling queenside, black initiates a direct pawn storm on the kingside, aiming to undermine white's central control and create attacking chances against the exposed white king. This pawn thrust aims to exploit the pinned knight on b6 by cramping black's queenside and potentially creating an outpost for the knight on d2. Black correctly identifies white's overloaded queen and exchanges a bishop for a rook, aiming to simplify the position and disrupt white's queenside development. This capture exploits the disruption of black's pawn structure, opening a file and creating an immediate threat to black's king. This move sacrifices a piece to gain significant piece activity and centralize the queen, aiming to exploit white's temporarily exposed king and pawn structure. This pawn push aggressively attacks the opposing queen and knight, aiming to exploit black's uncastled king and potentially create a passed pawn. This move aims to reposition the king to a safer square, away from the immediate dangers presented by white's advanced pawn and potential attacking lines along the c-file. This knight maneuver aims to reposition the knight to a more active square, potentially supporting further pawn advances or preparing for an attack on the queenside. This move fights for central space and opens lines for black's pieces, particularly the rook on the f-file, while also challenging white's pawn majority on the queenside. This move aims to reinforce the e5 pawn and prepare for potential pawn breaks in the center or kingside, while also opening lines for white's rooks. This pawn capture, fxe5, challenges white's central pawn and opens the f-file, creating immediate tactical possibilities for black's rooks and queen. Capturing on e5 opens the f-file for your rook and develops pressure along it while also potentially creating a passed pawn later. This move strategically repositions the rook to an open file, aiming to pressure white's central pawn majority and support a potential queenside pawn advance, while preparing for future tactical skirmishes. Developing the bishop to an active square on f4 prepares to challenge black's doubled c-pawns and potentially exploit the open diagonals for future kingside attack. This check forces the white king to move, creating an opportunity to potentially win material or disrupt white's defensive setup. This move, g3, is a necessary reaction to black's check and aims to block the aggressive queen, while simultaneously preparing to develop the king to a safer square. This move, qh5, repositions the queen to a more active square, aiming to put pressure on white's kingside and potentially create mating threats or exploit the weakened pawn structure around white's king. This move opens up the c-file for the rook, creating immediate threats against black's king position and preparing to contest control of this important semi-open file for future tactical skirmishes. The move Ka8 seeks to connect the rooks by moving the king off the dangerous open c-file and out of potential checks on the d8 square. This move aims to gain space on the kingside and potentially create an attacking opportunity by expanding the pawn chain and opening a diagonal for the queen and rook. This move seizes the initiative by attacking white's queen and opening lines for black's pieces, aiming to exploit the exposed white king. White aims to centralize the queen, creating attacking possibilities against black's king and potentially supporting a pawn push with d4. This move, 21, g5, initiates a desperate pawn storm on the kingside to create counterplay and attack white's seemingly solid structure, aiming to open lines for black's queen and rook. This move captures a piece that was indirectly defended, creating a serious threat against black's king and potentially opening lines for white's rook. This move initiates a critical forcing sequence, exploiting the exposed king on a8 by creating a check and disrupting white's coordination. This move is a necessary repositioning to safeguard the king from the immediate checks on the h file and to prepare for potential piece exchanges that might arise after the bishop check. This forcing check exploits white's uncastled king and compromised pawn structure, initiating a powerful mating attack that aims to break through the f-file. The king's safety is paramount after a series of checks, and this move repositioning the monarch to a more secure square is essential for preparing defensive maneuvers and avoiding further immediate threats. The rook's capture on e5 opens a critical diagonal for black's queen and creates immediate attacking threats against white's king, forcing a defensive reaction. This capture recaptures the piece, simplifies the position, and removes a powerful attacking piece for black, which is a good trade for white. This move forces the black queen to a powerful attacking square, creating a critical mating threat along the open d-file and forcing white to defend directly against checkmate. This move of king to h2 is a crucial defensive maneuver to escape the immediate check and prevent further complications from the opponent's queen and rooks that are converging on the g-file. This move is a brilliant queen sacrifice designed to disrupt white's king safety and create powerful mating threats. Leveraging the open files and the pinned knight on g3.